Alright guys, welcome back to another video. Today we have the Kemove K98SE. Kemove sent this out. This will not change my opinions of the board, but let's get into it. So in the box we have this gray cable, and then we have this keycap puller. We'll get into why it's just a keycap puller soon, but before we get more into the keyboard, I just want to show you two other things they sent me. They sent me this 2-in-1 keycap and switch puller. I'll show you more about it later. And then they sent me this new 4 keycap puller. It's quite interesting. I'll also show you more about this later. But let's get back into this board. This is a 98% keyboard. It's essentially missing like about a few keys in the middle, but it pretty much has everything you need. Something that you might notice is missing is like print screen, but also you can probably rebind one of these keys. In terms of switch options, it comes with red, blue, and brown pre-loop switches. I have the red version, which is probably what I would recommend most people buy because blue is clicky and annoying. Some people might like it, most people won't. And brown, I just don't know how well it will sound because sometimes cheap tactiles don't sound pretty good. Inside the case, there is going to be plate foam and case foam to give it a good dampening to make it sound nice. This keyboard is only wired, which I feel like a keyboard like this should have been wireless for what it's going for. But at the end of the day, a lot of people are fine with just wired, so that's it. So in terms of software, I opened up the software for like 2 minutes. It was pretty usable. It was fine. Nothing special. So now let's talk about the RGB. So as you can see, there is this blue light that kind of wraps around a little bit right here. You can change the modes of it. I currently have it on this mode. And then you have, as you see, the RGB, the backlight is just reacting when I press it. You can change the mode to have it fully on. Personally, I like this version, but you can pretty much change it to whatever you would like. This is only in the blue color, which again is something they should have just put regular RGB in. And yeah, so after we talk about the lighting, it's pretty much simple. It's just blue backlight, nothing crazy. But let's get into more about the case and stuff. So this is a all plastic case. It's pretty heavy. It's pretty big because it's a 98%. It's not going to be as heavy as a aluminum board. This is the back. On the back, it has this kind of like ridged bottom, and then we have these dual stage flippy feet, which is pretty nice. Personally, I'm just using it flat, but it gives everyone their preference in terms of typing angle. In terms of typing feel and sound, I'll give a sound at the end, and but I think it sounds pretty good. These stabilizers are pre-lubed extremely well for a keyboard at this price. I think these are the best pre-lubed stabilizers of any keyboard I've ever tried, under like $80. Phenomenal job on the stabilizers. These sound, it's red switches. It sounds fine, nothing special. But also, again, for a $40 keyboard, it sounds fine. So another issue I don't like, oh, and in the typing feel as well, this is not really a gasket keyboard. There's no flex, but the typing feel feels pretty solid in terms of gaming. So these switches don't feel the best for gaming. They feel a little heavy to me, at least. It's going to be preference. Like, this isn't necessarily the best keyboard for gaming, but obviously this layout doesn't come in many gaming keyboards, and it's expensive. You can't really get many budget options. It's fine for gaming, but I think there are definitely better options. So in terms of another issue I have with this keyboard is there is zero hotspot. I'm not a keyboard manufacturer. I don't know how much it costs to add hotspot, but I've seen hot swap keyboards in $25, $30 keyboards, and I just don't see why this couldn't have it. I feel like it would only make a keyboard cost another $1 or $2, if even. As I said, I don't really know, but they decided not to. It sounds fine. It doesn't really need it. It just means that keyboard enthusiasts are not going to want to buy it because they're not going to be able to mod it as much. So that comes into who is this type of keyboard for? Because there's no RGB, there's no hot swap ability, and the switches don't feel the best. So that eliminates keyboard enthusiasts, and then that eliminates most gamers unless they're on a really tight budget and need this keyboard. So I think a good recommendation of who this is for is kind of like a person who's maybe a little older, who's still using a membrane keyboard, who might just want something a little better, because this is still going to be a lot better than a membrane keyboard. And I think it's a good upgrade from a membrane keyboard, but obviously I wouldn't recommend buying it if you are going to mod. But if you're just someone who wants a slightly better keyboard, I think this is a great keyboard. I didn't even get into the keycaps. These are just like, I could try to just pull one off. These are just like, I think they're PBT. They're pretty good standard keycaps for this price. They're actually a lot better than most keyboards for this price. They seem to be cherry profile. Again, this keyboard's pretty solid. So this is $40 on Amazon. If you have Prime, you'll get next day or 2-day shipping. On Kemove's official site, it's $50, but I would recommend buying it from their Amazon store to get it cheaper and faster. But you might not live in America, but you can still buy it in their Kemove store. But once it gets 50 plus shipping, it might be already, there's better keyboards. My overall thoughts is that, again, if you're looking for an upgrade from a membrane keyboard or from a really old, cheap mechanical keyboard, this is going to be better. This is a solid keyboard. It just is missing wireless. It's missing hot swap ability, and it is missing RGB. If you can live without those things for only $40, I do think this is a solid keyboard. They do have a like $80 keyboard that has all those things, but that already gets pricey. If I would give Kemove some advice, I would say try to either add wireless hot swap or RGB, at least one of those features to this keyboard, just so it kind of gets more customers. Because I feel like if you add wireless, one group of people might want to buy it now. If you add RGB, more gamers might want to buy it. And if you add hot swap, a lot of keyboard enthusiasts might buy it because it's a cheap keyboard to mod. So that's just my advice, to add one of those things. But again, if you don't want any of these things, great keyboard for $40. So yeah, that's pretty much it on this keyboard. But before I get into the sound test, I want to talk about these two keycap and switch pullers they sent me. So let's start with this one. I think this is about $15, $20. You can just pull off a keycap like this, and then you can just flip this back down and remove the switch. I can't remove the switch because this isn't hot swap, but for a non-hot swap keyboard, this is way more effective than a regular switch puller, and can less likely to break. So I think this is worth it to buy for around, if it's like $15, if you regular swap your switches, because it'll make it a lot easier. But if you're only going to swap your switches like once a year, I don't think this is worth it for $15. Then let's get into this. So at this time, this is currently going to be on Kickstarter. I think at some point I'm going to be releasing this video a week or so, whatever, before Black Friday. So right now I have no idea how much this costs, but it is a keycap puller that can do 4 at a time, and it's more efficient. So if I find out the pricing, I'll add like a comment to the video, and if it's too expensive, I'll let you know if I think it's worth it or not. But let me just show you what it can do. So essentially that it just allows you to remove keycaps at 4 times the speed. So my thing is, if you remove your keycaps a lot to clean or to swap them, if you're doing it a couple times a year, if this thing is $10-15 bucks, I definitely think it's worth it. It's more efficient. Every time I mod a keyboard, I am going to be using probably both of these tools. I'll be using this for keycaps and this for switches. I definitely think these are useful. It just depends how often you mod your keyboard is if these are worth it. But that's pretty much it for the video. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one. But now you can watch the sound test. Peace.